please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Supplemental. Would you believe me if I told you that sometimes there is a genuine injustice where someone loses their entire life for a crime that they never committed? Yes, today is one of those quite rare days. Welcome everyone to the Halls of Injustice. Today this is episode number 174, not inmate number 174, because the person we're going to talk about today isn't going into one of these cells. I have had sources on a Discord server since August of last year, where I have been keeping a close eye on this particular case, because this has happened to an extent similar-ish years ago, concerning another person within the athletics field, but the person before, long ago, did in fact go to prison for a number of years before on appeal being overturned and released to get some sense of normality back, as if they really could, considering they had their entire life and future taken from them. There is a point to that, something which I would like to use today's discussion and person of interest, which is what we're going to call the person in question going forward as opposed to perp or inmate number, to discuss what has happened to them and use it as a suitable point to certain aspects of UK law that really should be protected, and individuals who are accused of very serious crimes until convicted or not. And if they're not, it should be down to the person who's had their life completely turned around to make a decision on that, and we will get into that more later on. The person of interest today is Benjamin Mendy. I would like to tell you a bit about who he is first, the crimes he was alleged to have committed, the trial, and the fallout. The fallout being more of a where is he now? Because considering he's not in one of these ISO cubes, he has to get his life back, and he had quite a potentially prosperous future. Whether he can get that back or not remains to be seen. So let me tell you a little bit about the person of interest for today, Benjamin Mendy. Benjamin Mendy was born the 17th of July 1994, is a French professional soccer or football player who played and has played for most of his career in the position of defence, notably left-back position. He came through the Le Havre Youth Academy and began his playing career with the club's reserve team in 2010. A year later, he was promoted to the first team. He remained there till 2013 when he joined Marseille. He then spent the next 3 seasons with Les Olympiens before leaving for Monaco. In the summer of 2017, he moved to England after scoring the world record transfer fee for a defender at that time of £52 million to Manchester City. In his first season, he won the Premier League. He went on to make 50 appearances for Manchester City between 2017 and 2023. However, his playing career for Manchester City ended in 2021. His honours would include 3 Premier League titles, 2 EFL Cups, a Community Shield, and a runner-up Champions League medal. He also won the FIFA World Cup in 2018. He has awards actually with Monaco, Marseille, and in 2018, Knight of the Legion of Honor. Congratulations. During 2018, he had to undergo surgery in Barcelona for a cartilage problem in his left knee. That kept him out for 12 weeks. He wasn't necessarily injury-prone, but he had also ruptured his anterior cruciate ligament in his knee. Something which, if you know anything about athletics, if your knees start to go or you have injuries in your knees, your career is greatly diminished, okay? Especially in sports like football where you are constantly running, you are constantly tackling or diving. Now this should serve as ample information to provide you with all the details you need to know about who Benjamin Mendy is. Somebody that has risen through ranks, gotten to the top, stayed at the top, been successful at the top, and then had it taken away. Now I mentioned he was with Manchester City up until 2023, June in fact. That was the end of his contract with Manchester City. In 2021, he was arrested on allegations of sexual offences and then suspended without pay by Manchester City. For those who don't know, Manchester City paid quite a lot of money for their players. He cost £52 million. Of course, they're willing to pay him a decent salary. His annual salary, for example, was £4.6 million a year. This is a vital consequence many need to understand. He has gone from being at the top, and Manchester City are one of the highest paying clubs in the world, to losing everything. Remember, He's not a perp in this, but he was when he was arrested. So we're going to treat him as if he is for the next part, the crime, the alleged crime, okay? But I'm still not going to call him inmate number 17 and whichever one we're on now, because honestly at this point, when you get to the end, you'll understand why this is so frustrating, even for someone who's paid as much as this guy to lose everything. So let us now go to the alleged crimes of Benjamin Mendy. On the 26th of August 2021, Cheshire Constabulary charged Benjamin Mendy with 4 counts of RAPE and 1 count of sexual assault. He was remanded into custody for that. The crimes were alleged to have taken place between October 2020 and August of 2021. He had applied for bail, but it was refused because during lockdowns he was having parties, house parties, and he broke his original bail conditions imposed that he should not host any house parties. He was immediately by Manchester City suspended from the team. That meant he was not able to collect his salary anymore. On the 10th of September, he appeared in court and was remanded in custody. While he was in custody, 3 more charges of RAPE were levied at him. He wasn't granted bail until the 7th of January 2022, on the condition that he live at his house address in Prestbury, Cheshire. He was not permitted to contact complainants, and he must also surrender his passport. To be honest, that's all fairly standard. The fact it took them this long, though, is interesting. On the 22nd of May 2022, Benjamin Mendy pleaded not guilty to 7 charges of RAPE, 1 of attempted RAPE, and 1 of sexual assault, relating to 6 complainants. On the 1st of June, he was charged with an additional RAPE brought forward by a new complainant. This is a lot of RAPE going on, a lot of accusations. To fight this with his own money, he had to start selling things. He had to start selling a lot of his possessions to be able to defend himself. Granted, when it came to money, Benjamin Mendy is one of the most reckless, but that's typical of a football player who doesn't understand what's going on. For example, he was fined by his own team 200 grand for breaching COVID rules. Rolexes that he bought for 200 grand, he sold for 130,000, just so he could use that money to pay for his defense. He sold a number of cars. He had a Mercedes for 90 grand that was worth 160 grand. He bought a Lamborghini for 700 grand, sold it for 410 grand. An Audi RS6 bought for 200 grand, sold for 100 grand. 3 Richard Mille watches for 1.15 million, sold for 820,000. He also overpaid 650,000 pounds on his home and then spent 800 grand on improvements which did not add any value to the property. But of those things he sold, he made a loss of $1 million, but used that money to defend himself. He was already a millionaire when he joined Monaco, but losing his salary with his high-flying life, which is just footballer life really, meant he wasn't exactly doing well financially enough to be able to look after himself. Let's continue with additional charges levied at him. Benjamin Mendy and his, quote, fixer took advantage, RAPED, and sexually assaulted 13 young women because they thought they were powerful and could get away with it, and turned pursuit of victims for sex into a game. The other person mentioned, the fixer, was Luis Sahar Maturi. For the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and tell you Luis Sahar Maturi was cleared of 3 of the accusations of RAPE, but faces a retrial over Sheffield sex assault allegation. I'm removing him from the board, but he is a part of this story. And if he's found guilty on any of the remaining things, don't worry, we'll come back to him later. With this information, we now need to move to the trial of Benjamin Mendy. Opening the case, Timothy Craig QC told the jury, "The case is simple. Actually, this case has little to do with football. It's another chapter in a very old story. Men who RAPE and sexually assault women because they think they are powerful and because they think they can get away with it. They knew very well what they were doing. They turned the pursuit of women for sex into a game. They were prepared to cross that line over and over again. That was the effect of their game. To them, these women were disposable things to be used for sex and thrown to one side." Central to the case is Mendy's home at the time. We say Mendy's house is part and parcel of how the defendant gained control of the victims. It's a mansion, but more importantly, it was isolated, as so many of the victims thought. On occasions when they got there, the victims had their phone taken from them. Some of the complainants were taken to rooms which were locked. Mr. Cray then told the jurors that Sahar was Mendy's friend and fixer, and one of his jobs was to find young women and to create the situations where those young women could be raped and sexually assaulted. He also said that Benjamin Mendy was a reasonably famous football player who, because of his wealth and status, others were prepared to help him to get what he wanted, adding, "Our case is that the defendant's pursuit of these 13 women turned them into predators who were prepared to commit serious sexual offences. And the fact they would not take no for an answer would be something the jurors will hear time and time again." The prosecutor also said that Mendy and Sahar say in broad terms that all the women consented to sex willingly, with only a couple of allegations where there is a denial that anything sexual happened. Timothy Cray also said ultimately these cases are about where the line is drawn. You will be able to weigh up whether in each case the defendants cross those lines because this is central, readily understandable life experience. You will know where the truth is after having heard the women concerned, the challenges to them, and the other evidence that is relevant to the allegations and the charges. On the second and third day of the trial, witnesses were brought forward. We're going to go to day 4 though, because this is one of those sources I had obtained, where a young lady called Jane Doe gave a testimony. Quote, "He, Benjamin Mendy, took my mobile phone off me and I followed him up 2 flights of stairs to try and get it back. I was saying that's my phone, I want it back. He was going through it, looking at private pictures of me that I've sent before. He saw pictures of my bum and was saying how much he liked it. And he also said he liked my tits." Referring to Mendy's bedroom, she said, "It was a big wooden door that had a black handle, like if you have a hotel. It had some kind of touchscreen fingerprint thing on it. I followed him in to get my phone, then the door shut behind me. I said, listen, I want to go home. I don't want to have sex with you." The alleged incident took place in October 2020, during lockdowns, after the woman had met Benjamin Mendy and a group of friends, and was then invited back to his mansion for a party. She was sitting in the basement of his home close to the swimming pool sending messages on Snapchat when the phone was taken from her. Once in that room and locked in, Benjamin Mendy allegedly asked her to remove her clothing. She said, "He said he just wanted to look at me. He said, I promise I won't touch you, I just want to see your tits. He again said, I promise I just want to look at you, you can't get out anyway." She reluctantly took off her clothes because she wanted to get her phone back and go home. She was just left standing there in her underwear. Mendy then threw the mobile phone onto the bed, and as she bent over to pick it up, the footballer grabbed her from behind. Quote, "He came from behind me and pushed me onto the bed, so I was on all fours. I told him, no, I don't want to have sex with you. He said he would not touch me. He just wanted to feel me. I was on all fours, my bum in the air. He was pulling my bum towards him and I kept saying, I don't want to have sex with you." He then allegedly, and according to Jane Doe, went in the front, the back, and her mouth. She remained adamant during the trial, giving her statement that at no point did she grant any consent. On the 24th of August 2022, one of the women who accused Benjamin Mendy of sexual assault was seen on security footage twice from inside a club, one on the day of the alleged incident, dancing against him, later the same night, putting a hand around his neck as they appeared to exchange words on the dance floor. Earlier that day, in July of 2021, the court was told how Benjamin Mendy had, that person, during a gathering at his mansion. In the police interview played to the court, she said he tried to debate her into having sex and, despite giving him every excuse, had to give in. When she was questioned over the footage and the suggestion that she was physically comfortable with him, she responded by saying, "I would not say I was physically comfortable in his company, I just not processed everything that had happened. I was very drunk and I was just doing what everyone else was doing, I was acting like nothing had happened." Eleanor Laws, QC, representing Benjamin Mendy, said, "Nobody in that club would suggest to you that you had to rub your bottom and dance towards someone you didn't want to." To which Jane Doe responded, "No." She later explained, "I was dancing with everyone was dancing with everyone." Now to go back to the Jane Doe, who was invited back to his house and was on her phone and claimed to be using Snapchat, Benjamin Mendy claimed that actually, one of the rules of people being visitors in his home was that you do not record videos in his home. He said, "I told her to delete the video, she gave me her phone, I deleted it. As I did, so a photo of her with no clothes on came up on the screen. She said she had more photos of her like that and we agreed to go upstairs to my bedroom so she could show me more." That is when things got consensual, according to Benjamin Mendy. During this trial that lasted more than 12 weeks, 10 character witnesses about Benjamin Mendy were presented to the court. 1 was his cleaner, 3 had sexual relationships with him, all felt very safe with him. Another was the former head of first team operations and support for Manchester City, who said that while he was not a perfect professional, he was really liked by everyone in the team dressing room, players and staff. His agent also spoke in favour of him as well. When the original trial ended, Benjamin Mendy was found innocent. This was on the 13th of January 2023, not guilty on 6 counts of RAPE and 1 count of sexual assault. The same jury, though, could not reach a verdict on 1 other count of RAPE and 1 count of attempted RAPE against Mendy, as well as 3 counts of those same charges and 3 sexual assault charges against Maturi. So the trial had to happen again, which meant more money spent, more time, more uncertainty for Benjamin Mendy. The remaining charges at trial on the 26th of June 2023 began at the same venue with a new jury. 2 weeks later, Benjamin Mendy was found not guilty of 1 charge of RAPE and 1 attempted RAPE. Benjamin Mendy wept in the court when he was found not guilty. He is innocent of everything put against him in a court where his peers, the people of this country, have decided he is innocent. Of course, those that have made the accusations retain anonymity for the rest of their life, and that's something I want to talk about next before we get to the fallout part for Benjamin Mendy, because he's got some work to do now. Let's see how concise we can make this. I believe, and have done for the longest time, and this might be contentious to some of you who might try and find a way to justify it not existing, that if one is accused of a serious crime, the most heinous of crimes, and they've yet to be found guilty, the harm done to their lives, all under the pretense of, but public interest, harms that person's life irreparably for the rest of their life. In the case of Benjamin Mendy, I earlier mentioned, right at the start, another football player, had actually gone to prison for charges against them similar. Ched Evans. 2.5 years later, he appealed and successfully had it overturned, but his career was destroyed at that point. The only silver lining for Ched Evans was, when a retrial happened and he was found not guilty, he at least got a £800,000 settlement from the legal firm that represented him in the first trial. He now plays for Preston North End, after a brief return to the very club that shunned him. And since he hasn't played since 2021, it's highly unlikely he'll actually play again. In the case of Benjamin Mendy, he went from being one of the most expensive defenders, left-wingers in history, to being nothing and having nothing. My view is, he should have retained the anonymity until the trial was concluded, and then he could choose whether this should be made public. Granted, his absence from a team in the public eye would certainly draw some attention, but it's not on the club or anyone else to report on why he is not there. Much of these trials, usually there's a gag order in effect, not allowing you to report on certain aspects of the trial. That should go so far as to include him, and the damage is very much clear on this one. It's a great example of how you can have everything and nothing at the same time. A man who has accomplished quite a bit, yet walks away with sod all. So I will always believe anonymity should be a right given to all involved in every instance until they are convicted. If they are not convicted, then they shouldn't be blasted like this. And I know public interest. I will not use that to justify. I do not believe that is the right thing to do, considering you can now see how much destruction is done to a person's career. How people haven't learnt this lesson yet is astonishing. So let us now go to the fallout. Benjamin Mendy has moved back to France and signed with Ligue 1 side Lorient on a 2-year deal. After their signing announcement, the team said FC Lorient is pleased to announce today the signing for 2 seasons of French international left-back Benjamin Mendy. After having satisfied the traditional medical examination, Benjamin Mendy, world champion 2018, quadruple winner of the Premier League under the colours of Man City, blah 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 blah. The manager has also spoken about how the signing of this defender, who has reaffirmed he has no issues with the arrival of Mendy at the team, saying the justice system's verdict should be taken at face value. You can't redo the trial. We can only echo the words of the Minister for Sport. It's been sorted out. We can't casually speak of a trial. Things are controlled and looked into. From the moment the verdict is given, we can't revisit it. There's no need to go back over the trial in the public space. Then, we had the conversation about measuring the way in which the player was apprehending all of this. I love the translation of this, by the way. It is chef's kisses. For Benjamin Mendy, he now has to make the most of his career while he still has one. At the age of 29, with knee issues in the past, he perhaps has 7 years left. Realistically, 7. If he gets called up to play internationally, that's fantastic for him. With people like Mbappe for France, he would be a great addition to the French side. His name is well and truly tarnished in the United Kingdom. Many football players in the UK, though, did tweet in support of him following this. That would include Jack Grealish, Rio Ferdinand, You also had Paul Pogba, Vinicius Jr. and Memphis Depay. In the case of Depay, he released a statement showing concern for the lack of support for Mendy by FIFA, his club, the national team and the Premier League during the legal process, which highlights another presuming guilt until proven innocent aspect of society, something I find quite unacceptable. Benjamin Mendy does not belong in one of these cells because the UK courts and a jury have determined in 2 trials that he is not guilty of any of the accusations levied against him. He is therefore not an inmate. He is no longer a person of interest either. He is somebody that faced the justice system and prevailed, but in the process was shown a level of injustice and unfairness which is entirely subjective, that is quite unacceptable and shows just how imbalanced, not properly balanced, the criminal justice system is. But I am glad he was found not guilty of everything, and do hope, while I don't support any of the teams he's played for, that he can eke out a suitable path forward and mature a bit and not be so bloody reckless. Also, he got drunk on tequila. Bitch, whiskey, man. Just whiskey, alright?